Good morning and welcome back to the History and Philosophy of Science in 6 Easy Steps. This is your Week 5 recap and Week 6 introduction. That's right, we are heading into our final week. And by the way, before I forget, make sure you stay tuned next week because there will be a final recap video with some information about grading and so forth that you'll definitely want to tune in for. Okay, so check back next week. So starting off, we want to recap our Week 5. Now in Week 5, of course, we looked at, number one, differences between science and technology and how they influence each other. And then number two, we looked at Carl Sagan's book, Demon Haunted World, and I was just asking you to reflect on that. So I was able to look at a few of you have turned in assignment 1. Only one person had turned in assignment 2 at the time that I'm making this video, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time with assignment 1. It's tough, isn't it, to separate science and technology. That was one of the points of this assignment, is to kind of get you to wrestle with that a little bit and to see that they are very much intertwined with each other. And I think the article that we read really brought that out well, what he called the symbiotic relationship between science and technology. But let's go to the definitions a little bit, because I saw some interesting ideas in your papers, and I want to just address that. One was that one of you said something like, science is thinking and technology is doing. And another of you said something similar to that, where kind of seemed to be equating science with knowledge almost. It almost seemed as if you were saying that technology wasn't about knowledge. Okay, and I just want to talk about that a little bit. Can we really say this? So if we say that technology isn't about knowledge, then what we're saying, or if it's not about thinking at all, then we're saying whenever we're using technology, I guess, or working with technology or dealing with technology, we're just doing things without thinking. And I'm not sure we'd really want to say that, would we? Think about this. I like to think about some early forms of technology. Say the first humans who were making stone tools, so they're chipping away at the stones. Is that technology? It seems like it's pretty clear that it is. Or maybe they're making an arrow out of a reed and a sharpened stone, or maybe they're starting a fire with flint, right? Or maybe they are learning how to cook different foods, right? Or even later on, maybe they're making alloys. Maybe they're making the first bronze or something like that. Is this science or technology, right? How would you answer that question? Do they have knowledge of how the rocks chip, how the different types of rocks chip? Do they have knowledge of how the food cooks? What kind of understanding do they have? Now, I'm not saying I have the answers to all of this. In fact, what I'm pointing out is that it's not always that easy. But let's just look at what we've learned in this course. So let's look at what Popper and Kuhn might say about what is science. If we're going to use Popper's criteria for demarcate, now we have to remember that the article we read, the essay we read by Popper, was really not about defining science. Rather, it was about demarcating between science and non-science, pseudoscience. But he did give us maybe a helpful criterion. He said a theory is scientific when it is falsifiable, when it's specific and makes specific predictions, right? So what if we use that a little bit? First of all, his whole criteria was based on the presence of a theory, the assumption that you're dealing with a theory, right? And what is a theory? So a theory is an idea about how the world works, right? So what if the Native Americans who are making their flint arrowheads or spearheads or knives, what if they had a theory about why this works and how this works, right? What if they had a theory about that this was a whole part of the way the world works, like there's this whole geometry to the world that filters through into the rocks, and that's what they're working with when they chip it at certain angles, right? Now, are they doing science? Maybe they are, right? Because then they can test it and falsify the theory. So, see what I'm saying? I think, and then let's look at Kuhn's view. So his whole view seemed to paint the picture that science was this thing that worked through this model or this cycle that he showed, where you have periods of normal science, anomalies, crises, and revolutions, right, and paradigm shifts. So what fits that model? And maybe things that fit that model are science. I found this interesting article. I was looking yesterday, and I'm going to post it up on the classroom page in case you want to take a look at it, because it really hits this nail on the head, I think, the question that we're wrestling with. And what they say is that technology and science are clearly not the same, because science follows a Kuhnian cycle of crises and revolutions, crises and paradigm shifts, whereas technology seems to follow a linear progression. Isn't that interesting? So this article, actually, let me take a look here when it was published. It was published in 1989, actually answers the question that we are wrestling with by referring to Kuhn, right? And they even mentioned Popper, of course, in the article also. But so that's an interesting way. Moving on to the next topic, we looked at Carl Sagan's Demon Haunted World, and I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, and part of the reason is that most of you haven't turned this assignment in yet as of the time I'm making this video. But the one piece I did read so far was awesome. It expanded on what Sagan was saying, focusing in on how do we encourage people, particularly women, to get involved in the sciences and all the stereotypes about sciences and why it's difficult to get students interested in it and so forth. So that was the focus of that paper, and I thought that was a great take on that. I do want to see you referencing Carl Sagan's book, The Demon Haunted World. And why did I give you this book? Well, I think it's a great way to kind of start wrapping up the course, because it really shows that science and the scientific way of thinking that we've been looking at with Kuhn and Popper and all through this course is much more than just lab work and writing scientific papers and scientists. It's for everyone, right? And that's, I think, what Sagan brings out. This way of looking at the world, what I will call the scientific worldview, is powerful throughout all of our lives, and it can be applied in all sorts of ways to make our lives safer, healthier, happier, whatever. Okay, so this way of thinking is really powerful. That's what I'm hoping you'll get out of this book, the reading here, the listening to this book, and this course in general. So I'm looking forward to reading the rest of your reflections on that. This is wide open. I do want you to reference Sagan, but I want you to come up with your own thesis that's reflecting on what Sagan has to say. Okay? All right, preview week 6. So this is our final week, and we're going to end it with a bang with something called the Singularity. Okay, and I want to just introduce briefly Ray Kurzweil, who's the author of the book that we're looking at. The Singularity Is Near. This is the book right here, and big thick book. Be thankful we're not reading this whole thing, but we are just reading one chapter from that. I would encourage you to read the whole thing, and then we're also watching a movie. You have to do both. You have to reference both in your piece. Now again, your assignment this week is just one. We're just giving you one assignment, and the reason I'm doing that is so you can have some extra time to do some revisions on your other assignments before Friday. But I want you to reflect on Kurzweil's singularity hypothesis. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Why? Do you agree with it? Do you think he's got a lot of good evidence for it? So come up with a thesis about this and write up a position paper, basically. Write your reflection as a position paper. I believe this about this book and this movie, and here's why. Okay, it is controversial. So I think there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of directions you could go with this paper, because it's kind of a controversial subject, the so-called singularity, right? And just do hashtag singularity on Twitter, or search it on the internet. You'll find lots of interesting stuff. So that's your assignment. And again, take some time also this week to do the Twitter chats and to catch up on some work that might be late for some of you, and revisions. So do some revision work. There's no reason that you all can't have A's in this course. Just go back and revise. Sometimes just a few things like adding citations will make a big difference in your scores on the work. And then again, make sure you tune in next week, because I'm going to make one more video. We're going to recap Singularity. We're going to just kind of give you some final information about how the grade's going to work and stuff like that. That'll be next week. Hope you are getting a lot out of this course. I have been really enjoying your work, looking at your work and seeing how your understanding's been coming along. This is really not easy stuff. None of these readings have been easy. they've all been technical, they've all been difficult. And so you're all doing a great job, and I hope that, and I know that you're grasping this stuff to various degrees, but you're all grasping it. So I hope you're growing through this as I am. So have a great week this week, and we're looking forward to school starting in the fall.